Isaiah tampered with 2 Kings, specifically Hezekiah's story in 2 Kings 18 to 20. Now, these narratives are repeated in Isaiah 36 to 39, and the accounts are pretty similar, but with one glaring difference. Now, Isaiah's edit takes place in chapter 38. This is Hezekiah's illness and recovery. And this edit, this change, this tampering of Isaiah completely changes the meaning of this story. My name is David, and I develop resources for Bible teachers like this one, which places 2 Kings 20 side by side with Isaiah 38. If you'd like to download this chart so you can follow along, you can do so by clicking a link in the description below. And while you're there, go ahead and like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on next week's free chart. But before we compare these two chapters, we have to ask, what are 4 chapters of narrative doing in the prophet Isaiah anyways? Well, Isaiah 36 to 39 is actually the second block of narrative in the book of Isaiah. The first block is in chapters 7 and 8 and concerns the reign of Ahaz and something that we call the Syro-Ephraimite coalition. This is a historical circumstance in which the nation of Syria allied with the nation of Israel in the north, the northern kingdom. They allied together against the burgeoning Assyrian army, and they try to convince Judah to join them, join this alliance, join the coalition with Syria and Ephraim. Well, Isaiah tells Ahaz, don't do it. Don't join this alliance. Trust in God only. And Ahaz listens, sort of. Instead of allying with Syria and Israel, he decides to think outside the box and forms an alliance with Assyria. Now, Isaiah is not very happy with this decision of Ahaz, and so he tells him in chapter 8, verse 6, because this people refuse the waters of Shiloah. That is, you refuse to trust in God alone and that he can protect the water source of Jerusalem. Therefore, God is bringing up against Syria and Israel the mighty waters of Assyria. However, these waters, the waters of Assyria, are going to flow over Israel. They're going to flow over Syria, but then they will sweep into Judah as well. This event is going to take place in Isaiah 36 and 37, and these chapters are going to witness Judah's total defeat by the kingdom of Assyria. They're going to come in and destroy 46 fortified cities. But because of the faith of Hezekiah, the city of Jerusalem will be spared. This, of course, is when God sends out his angel and kills 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. Now, if you'd like to check out another course which examines a full book diagram like this one, you can check out a link in the description below. The point is, this entire massive section, Isaiah 1 to 39, has all been about Assyria. This is Jerusalem during the Assyrian threat. But all of that is going to change in chapter 40. Now, all of a sudden, in 40 to 55, we are addressing an Israel which is in exile in Babylon. Take a look at chapter 47. Here we are. The Babylonians, the daughter of the Chaldeans, are addressed, and they say, I was angry with my people, I profaned my heritage, so I gave Judah into your hands, O Babylon, and you showed them no mercy. You see, that's why we have Isaiah 39. Isaiah 39 is going to bridge the historical gap between 1 to 39, which is all about Assyria, and 40 to 55, which is all about Babylon. Now, what happens in chapter 39? Well, this is when Hezekiah is going to invite the Babylonian envoys into his treasury. The king of Babylon sent envoys, and Hezekiah welcomed them gladly, showed them all of the treasure in his house. And for this act of treachery, attempting to make an alliance with Babylon, Isaiah is going to say to Hezekiah, the days are coming when all that is in your house will be carried to Babylon. So we have Judah's deliverance from Assyria in 36 to 37, and then a prophecy of their destruction by Babylon in 39. What then is the function of chapter 38? Well, on the one hand, it mirrors 36 and 37 pretty well. So Hezekiah's illness is going to parallel the siege of Jerusalem. And then in both cases, his illness and the siege, Hezekiah will pray to Yahweh. Then God will send Isaiah, who will promise deliverance and offer a sign in both narratives. And then Hezekiah is delivered twice, first from Assyria and the siege, and then from the sickness as well. Now, these parallels are going to function in both 2 Kings and Isaiah. But Isaiah wants to take this narrative in chapter 38 and do more with it. He wants to stretch its theological purpose even further. And so he tampers with the original. Let's take a look at this tampering. So we have 2 Kings 20 on the left and Isaiah 38 on the right. Now, some of the minor changes I have highlighted in this gray color, but there are two significant major changes, edits, tamperings that Isaiah does to the text. The first one is he takes this request for a sign from the middle of the narrative, where it is in 2 Kings, and he moves it to the very end of the narrative. That's kind of curious. And then secondly, we have the addition of an entire poem, an entire psalm or hymn, which Hezekiah crafts here in chapter 38, which is entirely missing from the book of 2 Kings. Let's look first at this sign request. So in the King's account, Isaiah will promise Hezekiah that he will be healed on the third day. What is the sign that the Lord will heal me on the third day? Well, any reference to the third day is completely removed from the Isaiah account, as is the whole purpose of the sign request in the first place. Hezekiah asks, what is the sign that the Lord will heal me? But that's not what it says in Isaiah. In Isaiah, it simply asks, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? That's because this story is not about you, Hezekiah. It is about Israel. It's about Jerusalem. It's about the temple. And that's why this sign request is transformed from a personal request about healing to a question about the temple. And it's moved to the end of this chapter, the last verse in chapter 38, which is right before chapter 39, which anticipates the exile in Babylon. It is transformed into a unanswered and open-ended question about Israel's restoration of their temple. But Isaiah's tampering isn't going to end with simply adjusting a single question. No, he is going to add an entire psalm to Isaiah 38. So in the King's account, chapter 20, we have the short paragraph about Hezekiah's illness and recovery, and then we go right into the Babylonian envoys. In the Isaiah account, well, here is Hezekiah's illness and recovery, and here is the Babylonian envoys. And what do you see in the middle? This entire psalm of Hezekiah, a writing of Hezekiah. Now, this psalm, this lament, is going to begin like a standard lament. He says, I am consigned to the gates of Sheol. I shall look no more upon man. And in verse 16, we have his request, O Lord, would you heal me and make me live? But it is the final line of this psalm which is most important. Just like the sign request, which says, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? So Hezekiah is going to end his psalm with this confidence. The Lord will save me, and we will play on musical stringed instruments all the days of our lives at the house of the Lord. This chapter is going to have a double focus on the temple, the house of the Lord. And it's a hope that is not just for Hezekiah, but it is a corporate hope for all of Israel. The Lord will save me, but we will play music all the days of our lives at the temple. And therefore, thanks to Isaiah's tampering, chapter 40 makes perfect sense. Isaiah chapter 40. Remember how this goes? Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem. Cry to her that her warfare is ended and that her iniquity is pardoned. Israel will go into exile, but God will restore her from exile, and Israel will return to the house of the Lord, where they will worship their God. You know, there was another person in Israel's history who really struggled to get into the house of the Lord. Remember Moses in Exodus 40? Well, this next video is going to explain why he wasn't allowed in the tabernacle.